annual meeting for election of chair, vice chair, second vice chair.
Should
So,
we roll call?
John, could we please have a roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Jones?
Here.
Commissioner Wallace?
Here.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Here.
And that's it, right? Is that everyone?
Yes.
We have a quorum. Dunlap, I'm sorry, Commissioner Dunlap.
Yes.
Sorry, Wallace. I had your first name.
Can we all stand and pledge allegiance?
Yes.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Notice of meeting?
John, yes, can you read the...
Notice of meeting was given in the following manner. Notice of meeting was transmitted and published in the Home News Tribune. Notice of the meeting and a copy of the agenda were filed with the clerk of the City of New Brunswick on July 23rd, 2018. And said notice of the meeting and a copy of the agenda were prominently posted on the announcement board in the lobby of City Hall at least 48 hours prior to the convening of this meeting.
Thank you. We have our annual election of officers.
Second Vice Chair, I'd like to open the floor for nominations for the position of Chairperson of the Board for the upcoming year. Are there any nominations for the position of Chairperson of the Board?
I would like to nominate Dale.
I'll second.
Are there any further nominations for the position of Chair? Having heard none, we will close the nominations and have a roll call vote for the position of Dale Caldwell for Chairperson of the Board.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunlap?
Yes.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
Motion passes.
I'd like to now open the floor for nominations for the position of Vice Chairperson of the Board.
I'd like to nominate Kevin Jones.
Is there a second?
I'm going to decline,
Okay.
but thank you. That's all right. I would like to nominate you.
Me? Again? Sure.
So Commissioner Jones nominates?
Second.
So not having heard a second for Commissioner Jones and in light of his statement, do we have a nomination then for the position of Vice Chairperson of the Board?
Commissioner Jones nominated Commissioner Giorgiani,
Yes.
and it was seconded by Commissioner Walde.
Not having heard any other nominations for the position of Vice Chairperson of the Board, we will now close nominations and take a roll call vote for Commissioner Giorgiani as Vice Chairperson of the Board.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunlap?
Yes.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to open the floor for nominations for the position of Second Vice Chairperson of the Board. Are there any nominations?
I'll take that work.
Would you like to be Kevin Jones for second vice chair?
I'll take that.
Is there a nomination?
Yes.
Okay, you have a nomination?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Walde.
Having heard no other nominations for the position of Vice Chairperson of the Board, we'll now take a roll call vote for Kevin Jones for Second Vice Chairperson of the Board.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunlap?
Yes.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
Okay.
Position of officers has been filled for the upcoming year, and now we can adjourn the election of officers portion of the meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn.
So move?
Roll call.
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunlap?
Yes.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, officers.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunlap?
Yes.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
And Chairman Caldwell?
Yes, yes, we have a quorum, so please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We need people to analyze that pledge. Okay, so reading of public notice.
No, notice of the meeting was given in the following manner. Notice of the meeting was transmitted and published in the Home News Tribune. Notice of the meeting and a copy of the agenda were filed with the city clerk of the city of New Brunswick on July 23rd, 2018, and said notice of the meeting and a copy of the agenda were properly posted on the announcement board in the lobby of City Hall at least 48 hours prior to convening this meeting.
Excellent. Okay. Meeting minutes
From the board training,
from the board training. Yep. Is there a motion to accept those?
So move.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion? No? Roll
she
call?
needs to abstain.
Yes, she was not present, Commissioner.
So Chair, she will be abstaining, is that okay with you, Chair?
Yeah, yeah. Now, as I understand it, you can, if
You can.
you can approve it if your reasons are reasonable, even if you weren't there. If you want to abstain, that's fine.
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
I did.
Georgiana, thank you very much. Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunlap?
Yes.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani?
Yes.
And Chair.
Yes. Excellent. The resolutions.
Resolution number 19 is a resolution ratifying, authorizing, and approving the payment of bills for the months of May and June 2018.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? No. Roll call?
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunlap?
Yes.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
And Chair.
Yes.
Okay. Resolution number 20 is a resolution ratifying, authorizing, and approving the revised New Brunswick Housing Authority annual plan.
Is there a motion?
Move.
Second?
I'll second then.
Discussion?
Yeah, you want to?
Sure, the annual plan is an annual document we do every year. It's updated in accordance with our five-year and annual plan process. This was just an annual plan update. The five-year plan will be in 2020, when we'll do the full update, and that's typically when we do it through the board retreat formal setting, when we go into the five-year component.
Wonderful. Roll call?
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunlap?
Yes.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
Commissioner Caldwell?
Yes.
Okay. Resolution number 21 is a resolution ratifying, authorizing, and approving the write-offs of certain rent in the total amount of $5,759.63 deemed to be uncollectible by the staff and personnel of the Housing Authority of the City of New Brunswick.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
Would you like an explanation?
Discussion?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is this annual or?
Yes, so this is an annual amount. To give you a perspective, we collect approximately $1.2 million in rent annually. Last year, we wrote off $31,000, so this is a substantial reduction. However, it is not a straight write-off. We still continue to attempt to collect these through our staff efforts and a collection component with tenants trying to use workout agreements. However, for accounting purposes, every year we have to realize an amount of items that we are basically saying at that time, when we close the budget year, we recognize them as not having been collected, nor do we anticipate them to be collected. So it's an accounting transaction, but we do not give up on this amount. But it is substantially less than the previous year, and well below what we usually have. A lot of that is our staff efforts, a lot of it is basically keeping up with the rental payments, a lot of it is people entering into repayment agreements. So we're able to collect amounts when we do determine that income was not reported, and we have to do retro payments on things. So, but it's a very good number.
Now, this is July 1st through June 30th?
Correct, July 1, 17, through June 30th, 18.
Okay.
Excellent. Roll call?
Commissioner Jones?
Yep.
Commissioner Dunlap?
Yes.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
And Chair?
Yes.
Okay. Resolution 22 is a resolution acting as redevelopment authority, a resolution ratifying, approving, and authorizing settlement in the matter of New Brunswick Today LLC versus New Brunswick Housing Authority.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? No? Roll call?
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you?
So this was a settlement agreement that we entered into, and we have realized with the court, and it's a settlement with regard to litigation.
Okay. Excellent. Roll call?
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunlap?
Yes.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
Chair?
Yes.
Okay. Resolution number 23 is a resolution approving attendance for Commissioner Kevin Jones to professional development training program from September 5th, 2018 through September 8th, 2018.
Excellent. Motion?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Roll
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
Second.
Commissioner Wall.
Discussion? Roll call?
Madam Chair. Commissioner Jones?
John, I'm going to abstain. I know I can vote, but I'm going to abstain from it.
Chair, are you all right with that abstention?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Dunlap.
Yes.
Commissioner Walde.
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani.
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez.
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
Okay. Resolution number 24 is a resolution acting as redevelopment authority, a resolution accepting proposal and authorizing contract to provide legal services in conjunction with redevelopment matters undertaken by the Housing Authority of the City of New Brunswick with Walentz, Goldman, and Spitzer Esquires.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second?
Okay. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Dunlap.
Yes.
Mr. Walde.
Yes.
Mr. Giorgiani.
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez.
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
Okay. Resolution number 25 is a resolution approving the contract for annual auditing services to Haymanson, Parnes, Giampolo for the fiscal year ending 6/30/18.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second?
Discussion?
Discussion.
So annual, as you know, annual auditing services are required to be procured annually. And we've done that for this process. Advertised 2 times. Went through and scored this proposal, and we're recommending its award. The auditor is an independent component, but we are still required to go out every year and basically solicit one.
Great. Roll call?
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Dunlap?
Yes.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes.
Mr. Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
Resolution 26 is a resolution approving the award of contract for architectural engineering services to Joseph F. McKernan Jr.
Is there a motion?
Move.
Second?
I'm sorry, moved Walde?
Yeah.
Walde, yep. Second?
I'll
Second.
Second Giorgiani?
Giorgiani. Discussion?
So similarly, architect and engineering services were solicited, advertised 2 times. We received 2 different proposals. They were scored, and we're recommending the highest respondent to that solicitation be awarded to this contractor.
Now, this is for annual inspection of the buildings, is that?
No, this is annual architect and engineering services. It is a fee-for-service contract. So we only use them when we have the need for them. It can be inspections of properties, it can be architect and engineering for construction projects, renovations, rehabilitations, anything on site that we need them for. But it is a fee-for-service contract not to exceed $30,000. So if we don't use them, we don't pay them. And if we use them, we would use them up to that amount within the annual year.
Good, excellent. Roll call?
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Dunlap?
Yes.
Mr. Walde?
Yes.
Mr. Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
Chair?
Yes.
Okay. Resolution number 27 is a resolution approving contract with William A. Elias for management consulting services.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Okay, any discussion?
Same thing, this is a annually procured service that we utilize for our in-house management consulting. And it was publicly advertised 2 times, scored, and this is the recommending component that we are recommending for the services.
This contract includes the training?
Correct. This is again, this is a fee-for-service contract, so it is only based on the time that he is actually requested to do items. It would include the annual training of staff in-house, as well as other activities relating to management consulting. For this year, it would include another general training for the board. And as I said, 2020 would be the actual board full retreat with the 5-year plan.
Excellent. Okay, roll call?
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Dunlap?
Yes.
Mr. Walde?
Yes.
Mr. Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
Chair?
Yes.
Okay. Resolution number 28 is a resolution authorizing and approving contract with Manfredi and Pellecchio to provide general legal services to the Housing Authority of the City of New Brunswick.
Your motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Dunlap?
Yes.
Mr. Walde?
Yes.
Mr. Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
Chair?
Yes.
Okay. Resolution number 29 is a resolution authorizing and approving cooperative agreement between the City of New Brunswick and the Housing Authority of the City of New Brunswick.
Excellent. Is there a motion?
Move.
Come on, second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Sure. As you may know, the cooperative agreement was one of the items that we had discussed previously updating. It includes our pilot, which is the payment in lieu of taxes. We were able to meet our counsel with city attorney and go through to draft a revised cooperation agreement. The city has already passed it, and this is now the counterpart to that document. This will, again, memorialize the agreement between the housing authority and the city for not only our payment in lieu of taxes, but also for other general services that they provide.
How long is the pilot? How
Sorry?
long is it, the pilot?
Our pilot for this agreement
Yeah.
is, it's indefinite. It's,
Oh.
it's pretty much as long as we provide the services with affordability within the property. So it's pretty much as long as these are public housing units,
Yeah.
they remain, it remains in place. If we were ever to somehow go outside of public housing, I'll give you an example. When we did the demolition of Memorial Homes, we came out of a pilot down there, and that property, because it was a mixed property coming back, meaning not all public housing, they entered into a separate agreement with the city. So that would really be the only time where the pilot would be removed, is if the public housing, entire property per se, would be no longer public housing. As long as it remains public housing, the pilot remains in place.
So it's not a renewal, actually?
Well, we had an original pilot, I believe, from the 1950s.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So
saying.
it is a renewal in the sense that we are now saying, you know, what it is we're exactly getting and what we're doing. But we also are getting other services, city policing services and other things, trash removal. We wanted to make sure that those items were memorialized in there, as well as a formula for what the pilot actually
On an
is.
annual basis?
It's an annual
Oh,
basis,
okay.
correct.
Excellent.
Chair, shall I?
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunlap?
Yes.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgiani?
Yes.
Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes.
And Chair.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have. Would you like me to go into the report
If you
side?
could, yes.
Chair, my report will stand. I do want to remind the board that we do have our National Night Out event, which is August 7th. We've already been speaking with the New Beginnings Resident Council about soliciting some volunteers to work with staff. The event will be on that Tuesday from approximately 6 p.m. till, what do you want to say, 8:30-ish?
Yeah.
We're looking for anyone that wants to come and help and volunteer. We're more than welcome to come. We'll start setting up the event at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a great event if you can make it out. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. I looked at the extended forecast right now. It says cloudy, but not raining for that day.
You know, that
So
doesn't tell you anything.
it's a great event, and as I said, we've been meeting and discussing with the New Beginnings Resident Council to try to get at least 8 people to volunteer to help for the day. Secondly, we continue to work with our maintenance staff on the daily activity sheet with regard to our work orders. I think they're getting down now to what I would believe would be a reasonable number. I would like to thank the New Beginnings Resident Council for their continued work. They did meet this past weekend. They provided me with an agenda which I'll send out separately to you guys, as well as minutes from the 2 previous meetings. But they also have been helpful in coordinating work orders that we may not necessarily have heard of. We do have some older tenants and some people that are hesitant on calling in work orders, and our staff basically are finding the smaller problems that were small to begin with, which are greater now because people have either ignored them and not called them in, small leaks that now become ceiling and whatever, or leaking toilets that weren't reported, which means the water's been running for weeks and weeks and weeks. My hope is that as we get further and further into our inspection component and our unit-by-unit review, we'll be able to identify some of those areas and hopefully address them as we go forward. I would like to thank my staff. I know we're very thin staffed, not only regularly, but now during the summer because people are taking breaks and taking off and what have you. We will continue to work through that thin staff process as long as we can. We are on a budget component through September now on a continuing resolution that will operate through that. We really don't have any word on what the next budget's going to be, per se, with the proration. But whatever it is, we'll work through it. And having said that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Any questions?
Yeah. Can you do us a favor? Can
Sure.
you send an email, a reminder for the August 7th?
Absolutely.
Like if you do that on Monday, because I think
Would you like to go out on
Put it
Monday?
on my phone.
Please.
Yep.
think it's August 6th, if I'm not mistaken.
It's August 7th, so I would say
No, no, I
August
mean,
6th, right?
That's, yeah, I forgot.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chair. I would like to thank Rebecca Escobar for helping with translation services. I know we have a number of residents who are either Spanish speaking only or feel more comfortable in speaking Spanish, and she has been volunteering to provide translation services, and it's been very helpful. We do have a limited number of staff. Here in-house, we always like to have at least 2 people, hopefully, that can translate for us, or at least 1 person available by phone should we have people that come in. But Rebecca has volunteered and been working with the New Beginnings resident council on that component, and it's been very helpful. I would like to thank her and recognize her.
Great job.
Other than that, my report will stand.
Any other old business? No? Done? Any other old business?
No, sir.
Okay, good. Now we move to public comment. Are there any comments from the public? Or to public? Folks, good evening.
Good evening, members of the board. Charles Cradaville, resident of New Brunswick, editor of New Brunswick Today newspaper, and candidate for mayor of this great city. I want to start by congratulating the new member and wish you all the best. I do have a number of questions, considering you don't have an August meeting and there's only 2 members of the public here. I hope you can show some discretion with the time. I want to, first of all, ask about the lawyer contracts, 24 and 28. Can you tell me how many bids were there for each contract?
Chair, we received 2 bids for the redevelopment contract and 2 bids for the general legal contract.
Okay. And can you
I'm sorry, proposals. Not
Proposals,
sorry,
right.
proposals.
Proposals is the proper
Yeah,
word.
okay.
Can you tell me the value of the contracts? Is there a set amount to either of them?
None? Oh, we can get that to you after, so. Well, he's-
Sure.
Go ahead, if you want to take your time here while your next one is going, hopefully.
Yeah, I wanted to also ask whether that money comes out of redevelopment or housing or a split. So I think the redevelopment attorneys are all out of the redevelopment side, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's all supposed to be paid back by the redevelopers?
The development money. You
Hold
wanna
on.
address
Redevelopment Council is, hold on 1 second. That is a fee for service, so it's an hourly rate. Here we go. Redevelopment Council is an hourly rate at $275 per hour for litigation matters, $250 for other services, $110 per hour for paralegal services. That's special counsel redevelopment.
And that gets paid back by the redevelopers, correct?
When you say paid back, I don't know what.
I mean, it's in the project budget, right?
So a project would develop an escrow account, the escrow account would be funded by the redeveloper, and monies for those transactions would be drawn from there, so there's no,
So none of these funds are coming out of the housing authority?
well, the redevelopment authority, it's completely separate from the housing authority budget, it's redevelopment. And it's paid for by the redeveloper into an escrow, and those escrow accounts are then used to pay for
Right,
the
so there's
services.
it's a net.
For a special council, right, for special redevelopment council. For housing authority council, I
Yes.
think you asked for both, right?
Yes.
Housing Authority Council, hold on 1 second.
But yeah, it's usually an hourly rate instead of.
Housing Authority Council, I think, is a not to exceed amount. But if you give me 1 second, I'm sorry.
Take your time.
Too many revolutions here. 2 months, that's what happens when you don't. So that's that one.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Martin, why don't you,
Sure, so regarding number 22 is the settlement agreement, and correct me if anything I say here is wrong, but this is a payment to New Brunswick Today LLC to settle a lawsuit brought in Superior Court that alleged a violation of the Open Public Records Act. And this is the second time in recent years that the Housing Authority has settled this type of lawsuit. And in both of the suits, the settlement involves the NBHA paying the counsel fees for the other side, in addition to your own lawyers. The first time I was the plaintiff, this time New Brunswick Today is the plaintiff. The last time this happened, the board discussed the case in closed session before agreeing to the settlement. So the question would be, why didn't the board discuss this case in closed session before agreeing to the settlement this time?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is a matter of litigation, and so the board is not at liberty to discuss it in public session.
Even if it's already been settled?
Correct.
Okay. So I was asking, why didn't you discuss it in closed session, but I understand you don't want to talk about it right now. The last case settlement was included in the payment of bills and not put on the agenda. Is there any reason why this is being put on the agenda as an agenda item?
Chairman, that's a matter of litigation. It relates to the final disposition of the case, so I'm sorry we cannot address that at this time.
Okay.
Charlie, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Chair?
Yeah.
So on the general counsel, it's a total amount not to exceed $55,000.
$55,000 for the year.
And the hourly rate of $125 per hour for legal services, $45 per hour for paralegal.
Thank you. So I have here copies of, this is the check that was issued last month to settle the case. And I'm just curious, if you can enlighten me, why was the check issued before the board approved the settlement?
Mr. Chairman, this was a ratification of the settlement previously made because the board did not have a meeting and due to court deadlines, which Mr. Craddock's attorney is fully aware of, the matter had to be resolved before Judge Reeves. So the board has ratified the action this evening.
Okay. Thank you for answering those questions. The reason that I asked them and show you the check there is I want you to be aware that the way the Open Public Records Act works is that folks are, public agencies are responsible for complying with the law and granting requests for records to anybody who asks for them within a reasonable period of time. And as we've talked about before, I've, in many cases, found the authority to be unreasonable in terms of not just the time, but also the tactics and the way that this all goes down. I do deal with a number of other agencies, including some that Mr. Chairman, you're a part of, and I honestly have never experienced this level of difficulty in obtaining basic records.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Craddock? What was your lawyer's hourly rate, just so the board's aware?
I'm
What was
not
your
sure.
attorney's hourly rate?
I'm not sure. I'd like to
What's
continue
your-
speaking without being interrupted.
I just had a question, what your attorney's hourly rate was.
I'm sure you could tell me. Would you like to?
It was $415 an hour.
And I
Did
think,
you make any accommodation to give any of that back to the agency to fulfill our nonprofit purpose at all, or at all? I don't think you did, so I won't even pursue that question.
Okay, so obviously your attorneys, I've said that he lost.
but let
The
me,
case was settled, it wasn't lost, it was
Well,
resolved.
Okay, so why are you paying my lawyer bills?
let me address, Charlie, you brought up so I'm president of the New Brunswick Board of Education. The New Brunswick Board of Education, you've not had that problem with. Because we're a $180 million organization. And so one of the things, and this is for the public record, that the state of New Jersey needs to look at the Open Public Records Act and look at reasonable. So if we have a staff that's 85% down, of course, you're picking on an agency that has no staff. We have staff in the Board of Education, and we can respond to that because we have thousands of employees. So when you come here and say, and you're kind of picking on an agency, and especially as a candidate for this wonderful city, to kind of pick on an agency that's been cut back, it's really just, it's not right. I mean, it's really kind of bullying.
So I
It's kind of
shouldn't, so I shouldn't ask for records, I
No,
shouldn't look
but
at
Charlie, you can
things.
ask for records, but when you ask for thousands of records with an agency that's been cut down, that's
I don't ask for
unreasonable.
thousands of records.
Yeah.
There are thousands of records,
Yeah.
and we can show that to the general public. There are thousands of records that you have asked
I
us
would
to
encourage you
produce.
to be more transparent with your records, and then you wouldn't have so
But
many
Charlie,
requests.
we can only accommodate a certain amount.
So,
And so that, I'm just
Without-
saying for the record, it's important that you understand that, first of all, the law does not take into account the size or capabilities of an agency. And so this is just, again, they have all sorts of problems with the law. But all I'm saying is when you mention another agency, you have to understand that this agency does not have the resources to respond to your request the way other agencies do.
and I would reckon that the other agency we're talking about, the Board of Education, probably gets a lot more requests from,
No, actually not. No, your requests are almost the same here in this little agency as they are on the New Brunswick Board of Education. I'm chair both, so I can tell you that. So the amount of work to respond,
you see all the Oprah requests that are filed with the Board of
Yeah.
Ed.
we talk about that because litigation, we talk about litigation, Charlie, and I'm aware of the litigation, I'm aware of the
Oh,
request.
sure.
And
You're
it
probably not
costs-
getting sued at the Board of Ed because you're complying
But-
with the
but-
law.
But,
And so the Housing Authority has
but it's
violated.
costing money. And so what I'm saying is if you are a candidate for mayor of this city, you are costing city agencies hundreds of thousands of dollars if you look at what you've done. And see, but what you're not understanding is because you've never been in an agency, you've never been a volunteer on any board, you've actually never been a public servant. So what you don't understand is what it takes from this side of we're all volunteers. They're there. So when you ask these, it's easy to send requests around the country, to send emails, and those types of things. So if you are a candidate and you truly care about the residents of the city of New Brunswick, you would stop this over abusive request for records of all these agencies. And so for the public record, I want the public to see that you, Charlie, have actually not been supportive of the city. I like you, actually. I think you can be a good guy. But if you're serious about helping the city, stop the craziness. I mean, we've talked about having actually, Charlie, we can stack up this high your request, your Oprah request, from the floor, not from the table, from the floor. That's just unreasonable. It's just unreasonable. And so, again, I mean, we'll allow you, I'm giving you extension to ask questions since we're not many people here, but it's important for the public, your public, to know that you are asking us to do, as volunteers, as a small agency, to do things that are unreasonable.
And Mr. Crowley, you asked for specific resident information on it, you asked for very specific information, which HUD doesn't allow us to release. The Board of Education doesn't have that. We cannot release the private records of our residents. So these things have to be gone through in detail and redacted. It's not transparency. You're after individual residents for information. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry, that doesn't cut into your time, but you have about 3 more questions. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for the leeway there, and I understand your position. I do respect the service of volunteers, all of you up there. But Mr. Clark is the custodian of records. He's paid well for his position, and part of that responsibility is to comply with the law. And the way it works is it's very simple. You get the request, you have 7 business days to respond. The response can include the records, or you can ask for an extension. And I've never fought anybody about an extension that was clear and saying, we need another 15 days, we need another 30 days. But what this agency does is you often say, you don't meet the original deadline, then you say we need another 15 days, and then you go silent for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and I have to follow up again. You don't keep the promises that are in writing. And so I have here the most recent email from Mr. Clark, July 3rd, in which a number of requests are responded to with a very simple, we need 15 more days. And I have for you here an email I sent July 19th. You were copied on it, Mr. Chairman. And it says quite clearly, and politely, where are the records?
But we've established, Charlie, that his job is to run the agency, not to respond to Oprah. It's a full-time job responding
But
to
it is,
requests.
actually. You named him the custodian of records.
But you can only do
passed
so
a
much.
resolution naming
So I'm asking you as someone, would you rather that he respond to your Oprah request or serve the residents of this housing authority? Which would you prefer? Well, no, which of those 2 would you prefer? I'm giving you a chance to ask, but I'm asking you a question. Which of those 2 would you prefer? You can't do both. when you have
Then
limited
you
staff.
should, then you should name someone else the custodian of records, would be
No,
the
no,
right
no.
thing for this board to do.
Well, you
If he
should-
cannot handle both responsibilities,
But Charlie-
he should not have both responsibilities, and that is common sense.
All right, so
So I
I'll let
think-
you have two more questions, but you have to understand that budgets limit the amount of staff, and staff limits out the ability for people to do stuff. And so you act as if, we have a limited record. So ask your other question.
Well, I want the board to understand, especially the new members, that this is a law that's very clear. The obligation is clearly on Mr. Clark, and he has the ability to ask for extensions. It's not like I'm
And he has in the
abusing
past.
things or.
But Charlie, but at the end of the day, so go on, ask your final question, so.
Okay, my number of questions keep going down, but I'm not asking them. But ultimately, I just want the board to understand that I'm trying to obtain information that's public information. If there's a legitimate reason to deny it, you deny it, and that's fine. If I disagree with the denial, I can challenge it, and I have, and I've been successful, and that's the reason that these things are being, unfortunately, costing money. Now, I do see it says here acting as redevelopment authority, so I just want to understand the money is coming out of the redevelopment authority, correct, for this settlement?
I'm not sure.
Yes, Chair, that's non-federal, non-public housing money.
Okay, so I just want to be clear about that, and I've said this before, I don't want to have to sue. I truly don't, and it's not what I want to spend my time doing, and I'm sure there's better things that everybody here could be doing than defending Oprah lawsuits, and there's a very simple way to make that happen, is to abide by the law. And I sincerely hope that when I get home tonight, I will see an email from Mr. Clark asking for an extension, and that I will get the records when I'm promised the records, so that the authority's not inviting additional litigation, because I only use this tactic as a last resort. I've had to do it twice now, and I don't want to do it a third time. I truly, it is a last resort when the runaround just gets to the point that I cannot get the records in a reasonable amount of time. And, in this case,
But at the end of the day, you're costing public agencies money, Charlie, and that's fine. So
Mr. Cradwell
that's-
makes requests for individual tenant records, which we have to carefully redact. It's a violation of HUD regulations to release private information.
And again, I want people, do you understand what we're saying? That when you ask for personal records of residents of this agency, that adds additional time and cost, because that's illegal, we have to go through and redact that. Do you understand? Why would you ever ask that?
what if I ask for this?
For information about the residents, record of
what?
residents?
Like what? The lease? I asked for a couple leases,
Yeah,
and
you
it
asked
takes
by-
2 seconds to black out.
You asked by name for
Mr. Chair, you're at
applications,
20
but
minutes.
we're not
Yeah,
going to argue.
that's fine.
But I'm sorry, what did I ask for? I want to know what the allegation is, because I think my request has all been reasonable.
We're not, but it's particular, and we'll leave it at that, but the particular information about residents. And so that's just inappropriate. So Charlie, I've given you some extra time.
I'm sorry, what documents did I ask for that were inappropriate?
You asked about a lease.
A lease?
Yeah,
You
which
gave
has
me a
per-
lease,
what
and you
person-
crossed out the names of the children on the
But-
lease.
but-
That took not more than 3 minutes.
But Charlie,
You
so
want
what you
you
understand?
want residents' applications.
You've never been in government. You've never been in government. You don't know what government's like. You don't know what it's like to actually respond to this stuff. So you do not have that experience. And so you're making statements that are out of ignorance. And so you don't know how hard it is to the other side. And so I know this from 2 agencies, so I can tell you very strongly. So again, Charlie, I've given you extra time. I wanted to make that clear in front of your cameras that this is what's going on, that the reality of being a representative of the citizenry, there's some good things. You do some good articles there. And I wish you would stick with the articles about how wonderful this city is. But spending your time making agencies spend money is just is difficult for a small agency. That's all. So, but Charlie, thank you for your
I
questions.
respect your
and
opinion.
thank you for-
I just want you to know that the reason that this payment is happening is because I was in the right and the agency was in the wrong. That's quite simply what it was. It was a disagreement about that.
Charlie,
There's
so
no
that-
finding in the
that's-
case. It was
And,
resolved.
well, then why'd you pay the attorney's fees?
But, all right,
There's a
Charlie-
fee-shifting provision in Oprah that requires...
Charlie, I don't want to get, we can off camera, we can get a discussion of whether every law in America is actually a good law. I don't think they are. So let's not assume that the law is a good law. So I thank you for your time, and again,
I look
I always
forward to a
appreciate talking.
conversation offline, and I encourage everybody to please look into the things that I'm looking into, because there's a reason for every one of these requests. They might seem sometimes strange, but I'm happy to tell any one of you, if you want to meet, I'll tell you why I'm asking for records about the toy giveaway, or the lease at One Bergen. I'm happy to tell you why I'm looking into those things.
Thank you so much. Are there any other public comments? Any other
I
comments?
just want to say real quick that I congratulate John and his staff for the collection of money, because I remember many, many, many years ago when I was here, that unpaid debt was like $75,000 and $73,000 and 68. So this is when I saw that it was like, I was like, yes, you know. So that's a testament to the staff. So.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunlap?
Yes.
Commissioner Walde?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, Commissioner Giorgiani?
Yes.
Congratulations, Commissioner Medina Hernandez. Commissioner Medina Hernandez?
Yes, welcome.
And Chair?
Yes.
Okay, Chair, I need you for a few minutes to
Yeah.
sign.